So give folks another moment or two before we get started. My clock's saying 1:01, so we might as well get started. I just wanted to let you know, my name is Lisa Bellows, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Project Management Constituent Group. Just a few reminders for today's meeting. We are going to be recording today's session, so you will be recorded if you choose to speak. John, could you flip the slides for a second there? A few other reminders. Could you be sure to keep your microphone on mute? And whatever you do, we love music, but please don't place us on hold if you happen to be connected on the telephone. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to raise your hand throughout the presentation. And you can also enter it in chat directly to either myself or John Freddie, or to the whole group if you'd like. Again, just a reminder, we are being recorded. So I want to go over quickly today's agenda. There we go. We're going to first talk about, if you've been at our last meeting or so, we've done a number of surveys and have been talking about what our plan is for 2021. We're going to kind of wrap that up and talk about what we learned from the various surveys and conversations we've had. We're also then going to talk into the main topic for today, which is about our project management templates. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry about that, Lisa. I apologize. I was trying to double check something in the background and the slides went all over the board.
Okay.
So I apologize.
That's okay. So John's going to talk about the plans for 2021 and then and the group collaboration. And then we're going to hand it over to Jen Birch, who's one of our steering group members. And she's going to talk about our new initiative to create a project template resource on our site. And then Ed Puckett's also going to talk about some other changes to the website that he's been working on. And then I'll come back in, and as time permits, we may have time for some open discussion. If not, then we'll wrap up by looking at what's ahead for the next few months. Again, just as a reminder, we'll have a number of speakers today. John, if you want to flip to the next slide, I believe. Yep, John will lead off with our plans for 2021, and then Jen will pick up with the templates, and Ed will pick up with the website. So go ahead. There we go. So at this moment, I'll hand it over to John Freddie, the other co-chair of the Project Management Constituent Group.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. I apologize to everybody for the rough start on my end for the meeting, as I'm driving slides, and I think I got the beeping going on in the background with folks here, and everything moving and going on. So thank you for your patience as we're getting everything rolling. So just to give folks a heads up, at our April meeting and then following up after the meeting, we actually did a survey and asked about 20 different topic suggestions going into next year. We want to make sure that we're delivering value to the community from the chair and the steering committee, and make sure we're focusing on the right things. So what we did was we sent out that survey. We used Microsoft Forms, let people just vote in order of what their interests are and see the results. And what you can see here are a lot of the larger blue bands leading to the right showed things that had a higher higher hit rate, higher response rate. And the things leading more towards the orange end were folks that said they were not as interested in. So what we did with that information was we took it and put into a table and actually applied a point system to it. So we said, okay, now for anybody who said they were extremely interested, we gave a 10-point value, 7 points, 5 points, 3 points, to 0 if someone said, I'm not at all interested. We had a little over 40 participants into the survey at that time out of our group. We totaled across everybody, and we highlighted what had the highest vote getters. So could have also taken an average score too, but it was a little bit easier to see. The spreads and things with the bigger numbers. So coming out of that, what we did was highlighted in green our top vote getters, and you can see by far and away project prioritization, especially related to our resources and organizational or competing organizational goals, and how folks are handling that was our top vote getter, followed by how we measure if projects are successful or not. Are there ways, KPIs, key performance indicators for those who are less acronym focused in their lives, but looking to see how we're measuring the success of our projects. And then governance from intake, which also relates to the prioritization topic. And then finally, reporting our status, so effective status reporting. So going beyond just saying, I'm on track, at risk, off track, red, yellow, green. So as we're going through there. So in looking at those, we said, okay, here's what we're going to focus on. So what we'll be doing now is I'll do the first shout out to folks that are on the call today, and we'll send it out to the group after the meeting as well. If there are any of these topic areas where you feel like you would have something to add, and you may not think you have something to add, but chances are you do, you know more than you think you do. But if there's an area that you're willing to share out for the group, we're looking for volunteers to come in and be guest panelists. So typically we would have 2 or 3 folks talking on a topic within a meeting session to be able to share what they're doing, what they've learned, what worked, what hasn't worked, ways they're looking for in the future. So feel free to put it in the chat now as we're moving on, but we'll be reaching out as well as we look to address these topics and to bring in some guest speakers to talk to those. And we'll have a little bit more on guest speakers when we get to the end of our topics today. So why did I show you all that sausage making? We wanted to show you that we just did a project prioritization exercise internally just to do this. So it doesn't have to be complex. Just in doing that quick survey, we captured a set of information about the request. We put a simple scoring criteria in place. We prioritized based on the scoring criteria. And now our next step is we're selecting based on what we saw coming out of that prioritization, and we're taking action on what that project is. So those 4 green highlighted rows on the last slide, those are the 4 projects that we just selected as our top priorities going into 2021. It doesn't need to be complex when we talk about project prioritizations. As long as you have a set of understood, consistent criteria that you can look for, you can see that prioritization just about things you do every day. So I'll put it out if anybody wants to pop into the chat. But we'll be looking at see other examples of how you prioritize things. So I'll give a minute if anybody wants to pop in, or if any of our co-chairs want to add an anecdote of their own. Feel free to pop in. Bueller. Okay. Well, we do it all the time. We put together the grocery list too. I know I have to prioritize which, do I have to buy healthy stuff or can I get snack food this time? Kevin, I see Kevin had said, whatever upper level administrator yells loudest gets prioritized. You say it with a smile, but if people want to raise a hand, feel free to raise a hand over there of who prioritizes like that in their organization. Co-hosts can't raise their hands virtually, so I'll at least raise my hand right here like this, because I know that's That's one of the primary prioritization models in our organization. All right, so what I'm going to do now, I am going to, oh, Karen had asked, what are common scoring criteria folks use for their projects? Karen, if you are willing to hold on, I've got that in my template discussion coming up in a few minutes, that's on one of the templates that we've got and can share today. We're going to do a quick vote, and we'll have a chance to see it. If not, we'll have a chance to share it after the meeting. So I'm going to turn it over to Jen, and Jen's going to talk about our project management templates and an activity that we're working on for the community that we kicked off just in the last month, and we're going to be moving forward with it. So Jen, I will hand it over to you and let you talk about our templates.
And hopefully not talk too long, because I tend to do that. So one of the things that the PMCG gets requests for quite a bit actually is sharing of examples of templates for various different scenarios. And, you know, everyone collectively in that community is really great at responding to those things, but we thought we'd take it to the next level of trying to coordinate and organize some of the better options that a collective group of folks have sort of reviewed and voted on, and take those things and publish them to our website, where folks can have access to them on a regular basis. So for a really simple, easy way for everyone to submit their templates to share, to be reviewed with the group, and to have some sort of publication out there, we decided we were just going to go with the simple Google form. It does have a code on it, so you do have to have sort of a code that would allow you to submit the form, just to make sure that we don't have folks randomly submitting various different templates or files to us. But, you know, these are things that are super easy to do. And I'm going to switch the screen to share with you and kind of walk through what that form will look like. Let me go ahead and grab the screen from you real quick here, John. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen here. All right. So again, it's a simple Google form. Most of us by this point have already used a Google form at some point or another. A lot of this is really just language to explain to you that these are intended to be templates that potentially will be published on our site, as well as shared with community group members. So we just want to make sure that you are aware of the fact that we're intending to take those things and share them with a broader audience. Are you okay with that before you go and start sharing your templates? Most of the time, if you're going to share it, it's because you want to actually have somebody else use that. So if you want to spend some time looking through the language here, feel free. We do actually have a note as well that if by some chance folks don't remember that code to submit the forms, to contact us, and we'll make sure to provide that. It's not something that we want to publish anywhere, obviously, but
Excuse me, Jen.
yeah.
Can you zoom in your screen a little bit to make it a little bit larger for folks to see?
Sure. Is it pretty small?
It's pretty small.
Oh. All right. Is this a little bit better?
There we go.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Brand new monitor, high resolution. Everything's super small. So as I was just saying, that really there's a lot of information here just to help guide. It's nothing that's legalese or anything like that, so don't worry about that. I went through the steps of already putting in my name. I'm going to put my email in here. And all of this information is required, not because we want to hold you to the fire, but because if there is a chance that we want to make sure we have clarification on something, maybe we weren't sure that the instruction or the information was crystal clear, the group wants to have the option to be able to reach back out to you to say, hey, you know, we saw this one area, can we get a little bit of clarity on it and maybe tweak the template a little bit? So we do ask that you fill out all the information. You'll see the little red asterisk there says that's required. It's not because we're going to go ahead and publish your name out there in public or anything, unless you say, I want to be given kudos for this awesome template I created. I did go ahead and give a template title. If you don't have one, if you want to just name it what your file is, that's probably fine, because the more important thing to give us is the category. The template title is something that we will eventually use to put on that template link on our site. But out of the gate, it's not a thing that's really that critical. So put the file name on there. Category, and we're open to discussion on this one here. The PMCG came up with a list of what we feel are the most common categories for templates, but we recognize that some of these maybe aren't as obvious, or you may even have something that we haven't come across before. So there is an option for other, and there's a box down lower that helps explain sort of what the purpose of that template is. So if you find that you do have a category that you'd like to add to this, you can either contact us and let us know, or you can just go ahead and indicate other. And then in the description, explain that this is a different type of template than what was already explained in the categories above. We will probably end up having to come up with some sort of guidance that we can link to that will explain some of the examples of what these categories are. Some are more straightforward than others, but I recognize that we do have kind of a cross mix of project management experience. So we've got some of our accidental PMs as well as our more experienced PMs in this group. So I think anything that we can do to mature and keep growing some of that information, we'll definitely pull together for you. But in the meantime, if you're not sure, go ahead and put it in there, and then put something in the description to explain it. If only there were one template to rule them all, we'd all be a bunch of happy project managers, but that's not going to happen. So keep putting them in there. We'll make sure we help collect them for you. The template file types are currently limited to PDFs, docs, text files, actual documentation style files. So there's no images like PNGs or GIFs or JPEGs or anything like that at this point. If you do have some of those that you want to try and put in there, maybe try to create a PDF off of it. If that's a little tricky, just go ahead and reach out to us, and I'm sure we can try and work with you to figure out some other way to change the file types. But in general, this Google form takes all of these uploaded files and it'll dump it into a Google Drive that the PMCG volunteer group will have access to, so that they can then access the files, review them, and go ahead and tell Ed when it's time for us to publish them on the website, and then make any type of announcements to folks to let them know that there are templates available and here's where you can go to access them. You're going to get to see here, this is our little 8-character code. You do need to put it in. It is case sensitive, but we're not intending to have this thing be a frequently changed code. So if you don't remember it, you can always go back to the slide deck from this meeting or review the meeting itself, but it will stay the same, at least for the foreseeable future right now. And once you put that in, you can go ahead and click your submit, and you'll get a response from the Google form that says, hey, thank you for your contribution. And you can either submit another template or you can close the window down. Okay, so John, do you want to pull up the presentation deck again, please? So as we were mentioning, one of the things that we hope to do is actually have a group of volunteers to contribute to reviewing those templates. So we can skip to the next slide. It's something that we'd like to have be a participation from volunteers from the group, not just the PMCG board members or any selected people. We want the group itself to really look through those templates and make sure that we're picking things that are the most helpful and relevant for everyone. So we're absolutely looking for volunteers to jump in here. I think we skipped ahead to the one for Ed, but there it is, isn't it? Oh, there it is. Sorry. So yeah, if you have a strong interest in trying to collect template information, if you have a large repository that you'd like to share and you feel might be helpful to share with all of your peers, reach out to us. You can either reach out to Chris Harshman, who's on our board, or you can contact us through the group. We'd prefer not to get inundated by the emails to the listserv because not everybody else is going to be interested in that contact, but let us know if you have any interest. You can even put your name in the chat messages right now to let us know if that's something that you would like to participate in. We expect some time after the season days, after the holidays, we'll all get back together and try to start putting this group together to try and get through. We've got quite a few templates already, and we'd like to try and start putting those out there in a visible area where folks can have access to them regularly. So I'm going to turn this over to Ed, and then Ed can explain to you sort of what we're doing with that website.
All righty, so we'll do another quick tour of the website just to focus on two new pieces, one specifically with how we're going to address templates. So I'm going to take over screen share now. I also have the web page loaded on a sizable monitor. So if I can get a quick check from everyone, is this visible or do I need to zoom in?
If you've got two monitors, Ed, we may be looking at the other monitor because all we see are mountains.
Are you serious? Okay. So Zoom does this interesting thing. It does not respect the Windows designation of my monitors, and it gets me every time. So hold on. And that's a relatively new thing that's going on. I don't know why that suddenly started to happen. So now you should see a web page, right?
And would you also go ahead and zoom in a little bit for us?
Happy to. That was the original check. All right. So this is the project management community group that you get to, or the landing page, if you will, that you would get to from the Educause site. And I've shown how you would get there before. Hopefully you've bookmarked this page, and you also know that the wiki, or the access to the wiki, is right here in this third box, bottom link. And just wanted to point out today, two new links. One, a collection of higher ed project management office websites. And I really can't take credit for this. As I was continuing to go through the files, I stumbled across this page and it had no link from any other location on the wiki. So all I did was just connect the link and double checked most of the PMO websites to make sure those links were still solid and removed the ones that weren't. But the majority of them, I think there was like 17 and 15 of them still work. So I call that free content, or a lot of content for free work. So we can definitely entertain the idea of putting other PMO offices up here. But to stay on point with today's discussion, the other item I want to point out is a starting point for collecting templates. So these are just a few. And to be frank, these templates were files that I saw combing through all the archives of meetings going back to 2011. And so when I saw something that was a good candidate for, ooh, this is a template, I featured it here. So we've got 4, and we can certainly grow this, and we will, as it gets larger, we'll add some additional navigation to accommodate the expanse of those templates, maybe even rethink how we display them. But for now, this is a good start. So a great place to go. And in fact, I think I said this last time we met, I stumbled across these two templates. They're job descriptions for senior project manager and a career path. I really wish I had found those 3 years ago. So this is that's why I really love this idea. We're combing through content, trying to get templates leveled up so that the website becomes a resource, your one-stop shop, if you will, for all your project office managerial needs. I'll stop the share and hand this back over to John, because George Mason, the university he works at, does some pretty cool things with templates. So John, back to you, sir.
All right, let me just pull back my screen share here. Thank you, Ed. Thanks for all the work. Ed has been spending, I think, every Friday afternoon for the last 2 months culling through the information and cleaning up the website. So we are greatly appreciative of the efforts there, Ed, and looking forward to the work of the subgroup we were just talking about. Thank you to everyone who's already volunteering to help out with that area as we start to go through these templates and build out the repository for the site. So thank you very much. What we want to do too is build on that and say, let's start talking about templates a little bit today, and have a chance to spend some time walking through for some different things people may see, especially as it relates to early on in the project or getting things started. So at Mason, we got a new CIO last year, right around this time last year, and he came in and said, we need to rework your project management framework. Funny thing was, we had just rolled out a rework of our project management framework 6 months earlier. So we had just gone through a cycle, and we're kind of going through another cycle of meeting the needs of what our leadership is looking for. So we're constantly looking at our templates, looking at how things work, taking pieces that may have been shelved for 10 years and bringing them back out, adding new stuff back and forth, because nothing can really ever be locked down forever for good. It's higher ed. We always change. It's always moving. And there's always room for growth. So for me, what I wanted to do today was give you a chance to tell me what you want to hear about. So in doing that, I pulled up 4 of our templates or areas that we're working on as options. I'll give a one-liner about each of them, and then I'm going to pull up a poll and let you vote, and I'll chat about what you want to talk about. So the first one is project classification. And that's what we use to say, is this a project? And if so, what are we going to do about it? And how big is it? What path do we need to follow? How do we determine what documentation or what project management procedures do we need to follow? And that's something we're just in draft mode working that right now, going through a rework from what we had done 13 years ago. Our prioritization criteria worksheet, or PCW form. People didn't like the word business case when we first were doing things, so we came up with a fancy name for it. This is that scoring classification that I mentioned earlier in the session, that asks a series of questions about what we think it's going to take to do the project, and what do we think we're going to get out of it when we're done. Is it going to be worth it to do this? And we have our project cost estimation. This is something new that we built in the spring of this year. Because up to this point, everybody always assumed that our internal resources were free. So no one ever thought about what it would actually take to do a project. It was just, oh, this is how much it costs to license the software. So that's our cost for the project. So this is working to get folks thinking about that. And the final piece is our project charter. And I just put a picture of the table of contents for that. And I can show you off our website what our charter looked like 6 months ago or actually a year ago now, versus what it looks like now for what we're doing, and the additional information that we're looking to collect to get people to really think and formalize what they're doing. So when I went to screen share, I lost a couple of my features here. So let me put up the poll. I'm going to launch it and give folks a moment to go ahead and vote and let us know what you'd like. So just select the topic you think, and based on time, we may have time to go through more than one of them. So I'll just use that as the poll to see. Yeah, it always ends up on that one.
Yeah, we can't vote as hosts, but I certainly am rooting for one of them.
So I've got about 17 out of 22, 18 coming in. So when I share it, we'll give another 30 seconds. Leave it open for at least a minute. All right, so I got 18 in. We'll go off of that since it has been open for a minute now. Go ahead and end it, and I'll share the results out, and let me know if everybody can see this. So it looks like project intake and scoring. Ed, was that what you had hoped to see?
Actually, rooting for the project classification one myself, because I'm intrigued. That's a discussion that comes up in our team quite a bit. What is a project? When should we be working on it? Or when should we just allow one of the service teams to do what they do best?
All right. Well, what I'm going to do is I am going to flip over. That's the one I was curious to hear, to get input from other folks on too. So I was hoping that was going to be a little bit higher as well. But let me go ahead. I will exit out of the presentation here. Whoops. And head over to my document, make sure I have one open, and look at that. That happens to be the one right on top here. Let me just make it nice and big for folks to see. And what I'm going to do is, actually, I'm not going to talk about this one. I think maybe I should put Jennifer on the spot and have her talk about it. So we'll see. Jennifer, would you like to talk about this one today, or do you want me to do the talking on it since we just shared it with you and we're doing some work in the background? We'll see if you respond in chat.
I mean, you know, I can talk.
Oh, not you, Jen.
What?
Oh,
I
no.
just don't know if I could talk about it and make any sense of it that would be useful to anybody.
Actually, I should have been clear. That's not the, I'm talking about Jennifer Smith.
Okay.
Who just responded with "you mean me?" So I was just putting you on the spot, Jennifer. But yes, so we started about 5 or 6 years ago with asking folks to help us prioritize our projects. And we put together what we called our IT governance group at that time, which was a cross-functional group of leaders, usually like assistant deans and senior leaders in the administrative side of the university, and said, help us prioritize. They said, well, how do we do that? So they helped us figure out and came up with a concept of, I'm going to actually start down here, a concept of a business driver. Wow, that still looks pretty small. But they came up with 5 different business drivers for types of projects. And said, so they knew and said, we don't care about your maintenance projects. Why should we wait? We're not going to waste our time prioritizing that. You need to know what to do there. Just go ahead and do it. We want to focus on the things that are going to transform the university and help prioritize. You know, should we do a registrar's project over an admissions project over a finance project? So I said, okay. So we did some research, did some looking around, talked to other schools because that's what we do. And we put together a 3-part questionnaire. The first part is general information about your project. This is an unscored section, but it's to get folks to think about what it is they're trying to do, why they're trying to do it, what they've looked at. And that's really what the emphasis here is. From our project management office, what we do is we're meant to work on this with you. So we don't like just throwing it over the wall. We do it a lot by interview. And if you're spending more than 15 to 20 minutes on this, you're thinking too deeply. That's our intent with what we're trying to do. So we gather information in the unscored section that's just asking, you know, describe what it is what you're trying to do or what it is you're doing. Why are you doing it? What's the opportunity? What's the need behind why you're doing this? Describe your solution. The business driver I already mentioned, that's where we say, is it maintenance or is it a mandate? That helps us classify it for how it would go through our governance processes at those times. Are you looking at something else? Well, a lot of times people come to us with a solution and say, we want to implement software X. We said, well, what else did you look at? Are there other options? You know, what would happen if it was status quo? Who's asking for it? Who's the point of contact? Do you have a start and finish in mind? And this is just to give us a feel for, yeah, they want this yesterday instead of thinking ahead of when they're going to need it next year. And then what's your rationale? We find that very important because even if we can't start it right now or do it on that time, it helps us understand what their drivers are of, hey, we need this in place before the start of the next fall semester, or this is an admissions project and we need this in place before we get into, we open up our application, you know, on August 1st, those sorts of details that help us in central IT. Then we ask them about money. You know, have you thought about funding? Do you have it funding allocated? Is it available? Or is this just hey, I have a great idea, but I don't know how we're going to pay for it? We have a couple other questions we have to ask that are state mandated. One of those are project costs. So if we exceed certain thresholds because we're a state institution, we have to report back to the state. If we're doing software development in certain areas, we have to report back to the state. But we also get some exemptions. So if we happen to be instructional in nature or research focused, those give us a little bit of leeway. They care more about transportation projects than they care about teaching and learning projects from monitoring at the state level. We ask about our involvement. What do you expect it to be from central IT? And then, are you aware? Have you been working with somebody already? Is there somebody that we know that you've already reached out to that have been talking about this, or is this going to come as a complete surprise? So, all just sort of qualifying information, and you can see how we get to it via interview. Our scored sections, we have our two. We have our impact section. So if you think it cost benefits, that's your benefit. And then our third section is our effort section. That would be equivalent to cost at this time. So for benefits, we ask about how it aligns to university goals, coming right off our strategic plan and understanding what they mean. And we ask you to justify it. Everything is points based. Let me see if I have this that I can. I may go to the other to our other tab in a few minutes. Our scoring is all hidden behind it, but it's diminishing returns. So if you say I'm just going to select all of them, it's not going to really be much better than if there's 3 or 4. So we built that into the instrument, and we had a blast building this because we had somebody from our we had a statistics professor who does this for a living, who helped us with the scoring and said, here's how we can fine tune it. So for us project manager types, it was great having an expert kind of show us ways that we could do things and say, here's how you can make sure you have a scale that goes from 0 to 100, that everything's not clustered between 60 and 80. But you don't want your 60 points to all of a sudden become 90 points. You want to keep them in the same relative order, but use more scale. So it was one of the fun things we had when we set it up. We asked about risk. So is this going to land Mason in the news if we don't do this here, or if this goes sideways? It's very important to us. We don't like being in the news for things like that. We want to be in the news for good things. So we ask. We ask about benefits to our student body. Is it a few students basically within a major, within a school or college? And we say if it's more than 5,000, we've got almost 40,000 students. We say if it's more than 5,000, at that point, that's effectively everybody. Similar questions we ask about faculty and staff. Is it within an office, a department, a division? And then if it's more than 1,000 out of our 10,000 or so, we say that's effectively everybody as well. Are there external benefits? Are there financial benefits? And what's the benefit amount and the type of benefit? So those, you can see questions like this work together. So there's really only one score that comes out of here. It's that combination of what type of benefit. Are we saving money? Are we increasing revenue? Are we avoiding costs or none? We get a little bit more software related down here, but we talk about customer satisfaction. Is it, it may not save a lot of money, but man, they're going to love us if we do this. Improving our password management site, it doesn't really save anything, but it's going to cut down on calls to our support center by 50%. So it gets into, our customers are happy because they don't need to make calls. And oh, by the way, it's going to save a whole lot of time for our support organization. So we look and see on that about how much does it save. And then are we reducing things? Are we retiring applications? Is this, if we put in this new system or this new process, is that going to eliminate 3 other processes? Or applications that we look at. So coming off of there, and then we have extra credit. So we know that this is very focused on what we do from our side. So it gives a chance to say, is there something that may not have shown up in another way in those questions? So it gives you an extra credit. It's out of 100 points. So you fill it out. If you haven't answered every question, you won't have a score. What I may do is I'll pull one up in a couple seconds that shows that kind of cooking show. Let's take it out of the oven and show what it looks like when things are filled out. So that gives you a score from 0 to 100 on your impact. Same thing, we go through our effort. We say, have you really thought about your scope? Is it flushed out? How complex is it? How many departments and things may be working on it? So is it just 1 or 2? Is it a lot? The more departments, the higher the score. Who's involved? Since I prefaced the other discussion by saying, is this free? or where they think that our staff resources are free. We weren't prepared to put dollar amounts on people's heads at this point, but we said, well, tell us about how many people are going to be working on it. Tell us from our IT organization. Tell us from the departmental side, who all is going to be doing this. Oh, and by the way, you have maintenance as well, and operations. So you can't just say we're launched and done. On an ongoing basis, are you going to need our involvement? You may still need somebody from IT. Are you going to need people on your side? You may need 3 to 5 staff to manage something on your side. Then we go back into the hard costs of what it costs to roll out. Then we said, what does it cost? What's your projection over the next 5 years? What do you think it'll be? And that could be licensing fees, contractor fees, et cetera. Excuse me. Do you have to develop interfaces, integrations with other systems? That adds complexity. Are you changing business processes? That's organizational change management. Plug for what we did a couple months ago. Great topic, and worrying about that, and how is the impact of the change going to be felt by the customers? What does it do on their day-to-day basis? We're changing the way people work. And then, of course, how long is it going to take? Is it a short project, long project? That adds to things, and anything else. So when you have all of those added in, it will give you a score. We go fill out these couple just to show how a score pops in. I think that's everything. So when you fill it out, then you'll get a score down at the bottom. What we used to do is we would actually plot these scores on a quadrant. So we'd have impact on the vertical, effort on the horizontal, and then you'd plot, and we give a diagonal line that's with that slope of 1. And then we look and say, where does our impact outweigh our effort? Everything above that line is good. Everything that's high and to the left, meaning high impact, low effort, those are things that we want to jump on right away. That's what we want to take. That's what we want to see and be investing in. Excuse me. If it's something on that bottom right, low impact, very high effort, those are the stinkers. We don't want to do those if we don't have to. Now, of course, what we found in the process is, excuse me, our stinkers tend to be our external mandates. We don't have a choice. We have to do them. They take a lot of energy, and there's not really a lot of visible benefit that comes out of it. So that is what we look at. Let me see if I can pop over into my files for a second and pull up an example of one that's completely filled out. In the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in chat. And if any of the other co-hosts can see if there's a hand raised, let me know that as well, because I cannot see that right now. Patty asked, since maintenance was not prioritized, were you able to get those projects done or in the queue? Was there another process for those? So actually, Patty, they do go through the same process and they're prioritized. We just actually prioritize those internally using the same criteria, same rules. So what we would do is where our IT governance group prioritized these strategic projects or internal mandates and looked at that group. If it was a required maintenance project, we had our internal IT senior staff would sit down and used to review those on a monthly basis and prioritize. So we'd actually have a project queue that shows a list for each of those types. And I can pull one up in a second as an example if folks want to see it. So this is an example of one that I did work through last week, actually, which is we're looking at a simulation lab or a sim lab for our College of Health and Human Services. If anybody is familiar with those, they look for having, they're mannequins, but these are very high-tech simulators that you can do to test. So like our nursing students can test different procedures on, see results. You can record it, get feedback. So we're working on putting together a lab for that. So this is the request asking for it. So I worked on this with somebody from the department. We worked together in filling it out. Filled out all of our top level information. It's done by a dean. We can look and see they wanted it right away. And Carol, I'll get to your question in just a moment. So in coming through, and we see their special timing, and we can see, based on what they fill out for it supports learning and teaching. There's some compliance stuff because we don't want to send anybody out into into the world unprepared. And we can see that it had a 69 benefit, 69.2. We go through the cost side and about a 50 on the cost side. So in looking at that, so that just gives a first point of reference. I saw some questions come through. So Carol said, let's say someone from the president's office wants a project completed. Do you still go through the scoring? We do. It may be after the fact, but we do it. And the reason why we do that is just because the president says they want it doesn't mean they actually know what they want and they can articulate it. So this helps us get that first level information, which then feeds into the charter, because we still need that. And we still need to know what resources we're going to be looking for. So in some ways, people may look at it and say it's part of a paperwork exercise, but it's necessary, and it's less about the information and more about the process of going through and getting folks to actually think about what it is they're doing in these areas. So, all right. Karen said, asked again, if maintenance are on the list, do they fill out this form that I just shared? Do they have a different form? They use the same exact form. So this one happened to be strategic, but that's why we ask at the front that they are actually asked the same questions, whether it's maintenance or not, maintenance, strategic, and it actually helps us figure out which ones they are. Lean on there. What's my email address? I will get that in the chat. Email on there. The approval process, I would love to repeat it. I should have been more prepared. I could have had a slide that shows it. The approval process right now is a very soft approval. There's no rejection, and we're actually reworking that whole governance cycle right now on the back end. So what it used to be was you would go through, you would fill out this form, and then it would get reviewed by the governance group, and they would prioritize, and it goes on a list. And I'm going to, hopefully because I have not filed my email from yesterday, I can pull up. Oh, actually, sorry, this morning, I can pull up my dashboard here. And what we have, and if folks can see this, I'm trying to be very, very quickly, knowing that I'm being recorded with my email up here on the screen. But we have our dashboard. So we have our 3 separate lists that we use. So that would come out. So we have our list of strategic and capital, which were prioritized by our governance group. And then we have our list of our maintenance projects. And we have a list of our mandated projects, internal, external mandates. And that's what we go ahead and use and what we draw and look at. And then we would sit down with our portfolios on a monthly basis and look at these, and assuming they have completed a charter, they're eligible for start work. And then we look down and we say, okay, let's look at our priorities. And our priorities then have resources associated with them. So do I have the resources available to start this project? If not, then I may go down to number 2. So just because they are prioritized order doesn't mean we're going to be able to start work in that exact order. We try to do the best we can, but you see a lot on here that are a lot of orange. Those are our administrative team. They're backlogged, or there's a lot of things that were on here related to our reporting team. So they may, at one point, they had the top 5 projects in queue. So they were backlogged at the top, and we didn't have the resources to do it. So we try to look at things on how we address it. But what we're trying to be is more deliberate moving forward. That's one of our areas that we know that we need to improve. Can I share the template I use for my portfolio dashboard? We don't really have a good one right now. So Chris, was there one that was there something that I had that flashed by that you saw? were you looking at, if we're looking at some of this stuff, it's very much just counts of things. But we do have we've got our project inventory. This is actually done with, anything that we have here on our report is done with Excel reporting services. It's coming out of a SharePoint site. So we have a project inventory that we maintain. I came over here. We have our project inventory where we list our projects, and we have a whole slew of information on those projects that we bring up and we capture, and then we report on a regular basis. So we take a lot of that information that we fill out on that request form, and we actually take it and translate it into our inventory here and use that for our reporting. And we're actually working on, as we get into status reporting, improving our status reporting right now as well, to have a generated status report coming out of it. So I think if I pop back over into here for a second, and I'll wrap up right after this. I think I have our status template that we're working to generate. When this opens up here, we'll look, I opened the wrong file. That's, it wasn't in there, but oh yeah, it is. Actually, this is it. The status report we're looking to generate that will come out of the system will actually look like this. And it's our developers working on it right now. We've got a couple sections that we don't have completely done, but this is what we're looking to be able to report out on a regular basis. And that all comes right from that one SharePoint list. So our leadership is very excited about that because they've kind of ignored our inventory for a long time, and we didn't have that great a status. So by having an active area and general information, it's giving them some good walk around tools to be able to have. So that is what we're working on there. What I am going to do is actually show one more thing. Ed, this is for you, because I believe it's relatively quick. And that is our project classification sheet that we're working on and process. So we have, the first thing we do is we ask, is it a project? We have 3 criteria. Is it, what's the deliverable? Is it a new service or process, retiring or adding new functionality? So you're doing something new. And then is it time bound, typical PMI? And then what's the level of effort? We said more than 80 hours of dedicated effort. And that means if I pick up and say, Ed, can I ask you a quick question? That's not counting towards that effort. So it's within reason. Once we know that, then we look and we have 3 questions we ask about: what do you think it's going to cost? How long do you think it's going to take? And what's a project team look like? And then we ask, is it an external mandate or internal mandate or addressing organizational risk? The responses to these questions, there's basically a class 1, class 2, class 3 response for these. So we say we expect it to be less than $250,000. And it's, again, this is, if the other one was meant to be 15 minutes, this is meant to be 2 minutes to do this. I expect it to be 6 to 12 months. The project team is internal to IT. It's not a mandate, and it's not risk. Once I know that, we see that it spits out it's a class 1 project. Class 1 says, and then each of the classes have a set of criteria that go with them. So this is draft right now. We are working through it. We're briefing our CIO on it, seeing if he likes it and what's going on in the back end. If so, then we get out to the tools and we'll be able to roll it out. And we're working on how they all fit together. So when do we do this relative to some of the other steps as we're working on reworking our intake? All right. That was a lot, but just showing some of the templates and things that after this meeting, once we roll out the form, I will be shooting these templates up to share for anything that we can do to help. And we learned our stuff, and I always have to give my plug. I'm going to give my big shout out to Loyola University of Maryland in Baltimore. as the predecessor to ours. So that was who we reached out to and interviewed and spent some time with them. And we learned a lot from what they did. And that was what fed into ours. And that was why I had called out Jennifer Smith a little bit earlier. And the topic is she had asked about the scoring and how some of the things work in here. So we shared some of our back end scoring on how we do this, and then how we actually take this and wrote a program to turn the spreadsheet into a document for people to be able to read and review. So, and it looked like, Jennifer, did I see you had a hand raised? You can go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to say hello. I was on my phone, so I was struggling to find the unmute button on the phone, but I wanted to give a shout out to you guys at George Mason. You're like rock stars to us. And we've had, scoring systems and various bits and pieces of things, but using yours for inspiration has really eliminated sort of this manual scoring and then going to this document and that document. We've been using an iteration of this, which sort of holistically takes a couple of different intake points together. And so we're really thrilled, and the sharing in this community has been really great. So thank you for that.
You are welcome and glad to help. And for those who don't know, so the scoring behind it, each question has a percentage value out of 100. And then each response has a percentage of those points. So a 10-point question may have a 10-point response, a 7-point response, a 5-point response, and a 0, that sort of thing. And that's, so by the time you multiply that together, you end up with a weighted score at the end, which is how it all calculates out. So going back to the, to how we weighted the stuff at the beginning today, when we talked about prioritizing the topics, all I just demonstrated was that on steroids. And that was really, in looking at what we do. So I am going to go ahead and turn it back over to Lisa, who will do some wrap ups today and fill us in on what we have coming up next.
Okay. Great. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
I don't think we have any time for any open discussion topics. If you have questions for John, please feel free to post them. What's up on your screen right now is just a quick overview of our upcoming 2021 meetings. Please keep in mind that we do 1 month, we do a Tuesday at 2 meeting, and then the following month is a Wednesday at 1, and then we rotate back and forth. Some topics that we're going to be talking about. Of course, as we said earlier, we're always looking for volunteers. So if you have any interest in speaking, whether it's creative, effective project status reports, governance, project prioritization, measuring success of projects, KPIs, a lot of the topics that you've heard John talk about today from the survey, as well as his templates, please just reach out to either myself, John, anyone, and we will get you slated for a month coming up. We do have a couple keynote presentations, Agile and project management, as well as the Rise of the Project Manager Liaison, that we're going to be planning for the late winter, springtime. We are working on partnering with ITSM, the community group, on different topics. So watch for more details coming there. And then in May, we're going to be planning a kind of a community group session, similar, but not exactly as affiliated with Educause as the one that we did as part of the annual conference in October. So please stay tuned, watch the listserv. We'll post all the information on all of these upcoming sessions there. Just as a reminder, our next meeting is Tuesday, January 19th at 2 o'clock. We have lots of different Educause resources for you if you have interest, as well as we have our amazing new website, thanks to Ed, that includes all of those resources that he showed earlier, and we're continuing to build. And please feel free, we will post the link to that form for the templates out in the listserv, so please feel free to share templates and check out templates as we get them posted on the website. Okay, we want everyone to have a happy holiday season and a good break. Stay safe. Thank you.